We have talked quite a bit about plant and animal domestication over the course of this semester. Now, let's pull some of those threads together and think about how the agriculture that marked the Neolithic affected fertility. Agriculture had a profound influence on human demography. Humans were hunter gatherers for the vast majority of our existence. But then the innovation of plant and animal domestication occurred in multiple places around the world and spread quickly. We see this amazing transition beginning between 11,000 and 3,000 years ago, depending on what continent you are on. As a society shifts their subsistence structure from foraging to agriculture, it moves from a situation in which a large proportion of the population is involved in producing and gathering food to one in which a much smaller sector of the society is involved in food production. One farmer can feed many people. The food producing sector decreases in size, and the non food producing sector increases. This frees up people to pursue other endeavors like becoming professional politicians, specializing specialized manufacturing, for example, or formalized education with full-time professors. You can see this today as agriculture now represents only 3% of the United States labor force. There were two major demographic changes that came along with the move to agriculture. First, population size increased. Archaeological and genetic evidence show clear evidence of population expansion. It's estimated that human population size grew from 6 million people to now 7 billion people. From modern day groups that we saw in a previous video in this module, we've seen that total fertility rates are higher in agricultural groups and that they are especially high in colonizing populations that are also agricultural. The second major demographic change that came along with the move to agriculture is in health. Health is actually better in hunter gatherer groups compared to agriculturalists, and this might be contrary to what you expect. So, the health of hunter gatherers was better than that of their neighbor farmers, according to the osteological evidence that anthropologists have explored. In North America, in the 1,000 years after agriculture is adopted, there is a significant increase in juvenile skeletons in cemeteries. So, people who are between the ages of 5 and 19 years. So, health was decreasing and people were losing their children and young adults. We also see that there were changes in that came concomitant with changes in diet, such as people were eating more and more soft, squishy foods, and that meant that our jaws were not as developed. And that means we didn't have enough room in our jaws for our teeth. And so, with the move to agriculture, you see populations having an increase in the malocclusion, an increase in crowded dentitions. This is when you start to see the need to have wisdom teeth pulled or wisdom teeth that are impacted. The other thing that comes from this shift in diet, as you already know, if you think back to the very earliest part of this semester, is that you have an increase in the number of dental caries that people had, the cavities. Because of the much starchier foods that people eat when they are agriculturalists, they have an increase in cavities in their dentitions. So oral health decreased as well as nutritional health, as well as the skeletal health reflected in the osteological evidence. So if health actually deteriorates with the move to agriculture, this raises the question, why farming instead of foraging? Well, one thing that we know is that you can feed more people with farming. So you can feed about a half a person per kilometer squared with foraging, and you can feed 54 people per kilometer squared today with our modern agricultural practices. But is this why farming began? Well, there's no general consensus among scientists as to why populations made that transition. We do know that population size is the increase in population size is correlated with farming, but which came first? We don't know. But one thought is that if you do make a shift to agriculture for cultural reasons, you're basically stuck with it because you have more children, because you have more people to feed, and then you don't really have a choice.